This is ACT Science Passage 2, and it's research. This one's a little bit interesting because it says study, but it doesn't say study 1 or study 2. We're going to still treat this like a research passage because odds are something is going to come from this reading. It's kind of like research light or data-ish, research-ish, but we're going to treat it like research. For our research and our DRC approach, that means read, not carefully, but look for the processes or differences in studies. There's only one study here, so you're really looking at the process. R&R approach, read, then reread the question, breaking it down step by step. We're going to do the reread together. First question is number 7. Was the number of unmarked snails captured during the second visit higher for group 2 or 3? So we're going to go to table 2 and we're looking at just the unmarked snail category, groups 2 or 3. So which one was higher? Well, group 2. And so we know it's group 2, and because they captured 21 unmarked snails in group 2. Pretty straightforward question. Answer is A. Number 8, the estimated size of the snail population was smallest for the group assigned which color? Okay, so estimated snail population, the smallest is group 4. Well, which one does group 4 correspond to? Group 4 corresponds to green, so your answer has to be J. Number 9 is the suppose question, so we're going to have to really consider the variables, maybe add some data to the experiment, extrapolate some data. Suppose the students wanted to repeat the study the next year to determine whether the size of the snail population had changed. Which of the following aspects should be kept constant so that the data from each year can be validly compared? Well, if you change anything, it's going to change the outcome. If you did a different species, you're not studying the same thing. A different location, you're not studying the same population. Different time of year, you're not studying the same variables. So you had to have all the same, which would be choice D. Consider the following steps that were performed in the study. In which sequence were they performed? So here's the reading, right? I told you some of these would come from the reading in this section. So what did they do first? Well, they dried the snail's shell using a paper towel. So we can eliminate choice F and G. Then they marked the snails with nail polish, and finally they released them back into the stream. So your answer is H. Number 11, another suppose if Y question. You're going to have to extrapolate some information, make some inferences. Suppose the nail polish used to mark the snails had worn off some of the snails within 3 days. Which of R and N, if either, would likely have been affected? So they're doing it 7 days later. Let's work that out first. If it was only 2 days later, neither would have been affected, right? But 7 days later, because it washed off in 3 days, it will be affected. So we're going to go to the table. R is the number of marked snails. N is the number of unmarked snails. So if they were marked, they could be mistaken as unmarked. So it would affect both R and N. C. Number 12, the linear distance traveled was measured for how many of the recaptured snails. So this is the number of marked snails. The numbers are recaptured, and they measured how far each of the marked snails traveled. So we have to add these numbers. So 7 plus 18 plus 14 plus 20 is 59. ACT does not let you use a calculator on the science, so you have to do some basic math. It's a pretty big difference between 59 and 85 and 25. So you don't even have to be really close to your math. You can get a good estimate. What's the minimum linear distance in centimeters traveled by a snail in group 3? This is a very common knowledge question, top 5 knowledge. So the distance is in meters. We want it in centimeters. So it goes 0.43 meters. You can use the acronym King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk to help you remember the order. So we go from 0.43 to 4.3 to 43. So your answer is D. Each one of these, if you're going to the right, you multiply by 10. If you're going to the left, you divide by 10. So D. All right, reach out if you have any questions at all. We'll end with our silly joke. It's a guy in his house and he hears a knock. Goes to open the door and there's a snail at his front door and he's not in a very good mood. He picks the snail up and chucks it across his yard. 2 years later, guy's standing in his house again, hears another knock, opens the door, same snail standing at the front door. Snail looks up at him and says, "Dude, what was that all about?" All right, have a good day.